Hello, everybody. Hello, everyone. I hope you're doing well. Welcome to NFTV Extra. This is the Formula One recap of the Montreal Grand Prix. I am sporting the Ferrari top. This one's actually, I don't know if you can see it on the back there. I'll spin round. Charles Leclerc. I've got the Charles Leclerc one. I've got a Carlos Sainz one as well. But yeah, obviously, I try my best not to be biased as much as possible on these videos. We do have Matt coming up very, very shortly to have his say, probably for more of a neutral. Matt is a big McLaren fan. Obviously, I'm a big Ferrari fan, but we'll try and keep it very, very neutral as best we can here on the video. If you're watching the rerun, please let us know in the comments down there below. And welcome to our latest video here on NFTV Extra. If you're watching the brand new or if you're returning, smash the like. Come on, you can do it. And over on the main channel, we've got memberships just for 99 pence. 99 pence. It's an absolute bargain. Absolutely incredible. It's mental. All the socials are doing there if you want to see and have a look at our website as well. But yeah, we're going to be chatting about the F1. We'll get straight to the results and then we'll hear from Matt on his say on the race, and then we'll take a look at the standings as well. So we'll get the good old share screen facility now. There might be a few spoilers there, so if you haven't seen the results, get off this video, come back and watch it later. But here we go, everybody. So we'll make this. Shall we make it? Yeah, we'll keep it full screen. Why not? You can see over on the right-hand side some smaller details of where people are in the championship, which, as I say, we'll come to a little bit later. So, obviously, I've been quite disappointed being a Ferrari fan the last few races, shall we say, because we've had disappointment from the power units. We've had failures in the pit stops from a McLaren, from a Ferrari point of view. So I've got McLaren on the brain because of Matt, which has been disappointing. Hello, Wolfson. I hope you're doing well, pal. But Charles Leclerc, we knew it in qualifying, put a new engine in. And again, because he's had that many, he had to start at the back of the grid, which that's negative. Don't get me wrong, but there can only be one outcome and one positive, that he's got to go ahead of Yuki Tsunoda, who was fighting for last place, 19th and 20th place. So that was the battle with Leclerc. It was disappointing, but the only way positive that you can only go one way, which is forward, and that's through the field. So that was the positive to look at in qualifying. And obviously Carlos Sainz was battling in the top three for qualifying, and the ownership was on him really this weekend. Can he go out and prove to the critics that he can challenge at the very, very top instead of being your third, your fourth, your fifth? Can Sainz go and challenge first place? That was hit because he was the main man this weekend because Leclerc was so far back, starting from the back of the grid. But what a performance by Fernando Alonso. Brilliantly to start second in qualifying, which was mint. Obviously, ex-Ferrari, I want him to do well. Of course I do. I want all the ex-Ferrari drivers to do well, but 40 years of age, he's got a few years on me. Mind you, I'm getting more grey than what he is like. But yeah, it was great to see him, obviously, right the front. And it was an interesting, obviously, Verstappen got pole. But it was interesting because you had Perez down at 13th. You had Norris struggling down at 14th. You had Leclerc 19th. You had the Haas's really high up. It was an interesting going into the race. It's really, really good for the neutral fan to have a look at, obviously, the race going into it. We've seen it qualifying. It was obviously raining. Today was red hot. Let's switch it to full screen. We'll go through it, of course. We'll talk about incidents and that. And the first man out was Sergio Perez, so I mentioned there. And I'm not going to lie, I was pretty happy to see Sergio Perez go out. Just for selfish point of view, being Ferrari fan, I'm not going to lie. He went out. Obviously, that was a failure. Again, I think Crofty was saying on the commentary that it could be hydraulics, possibly. Mick Schumacher, another one, he started sixth, a real great opportunity to try and get some points. Disappoint for him. He's just, there's only two. I know Hoff. Well, if you look at we'll come to the driver standards, but there's only two active drivers who haven't scored. Mick Schumacher as one of them. And as I mentioned, Yuki Tsunoda as well. He finished bottom in qualifying. He with the battle with Leclerc, with obviously the change of engine for Leclerc, but he went out as well. And then if we start going up the grid, Magnussen was so unfortunate. He had that incident with his front wing, and then he was told to come in, starting fifth again. Haas was so unlucky. just a bad day for them. And obviously they're based in America, and that's obviously next door to Canada. Nicholas Latifi and his good old last or second last, I just didn't think he's a great driver. Lando Norris struggled massively again. I don't mind the McLaren struggling again, and that's got me Ferrari head on. But McLaren are really struggling at the moment. More on that in when we look at the standards in more detail. Pierre Gasly had a tough afternoon as well. Alex Albon, a little bit higher. He's outperforming his teammate, both in the Williams. Vettel, again, starting 16th, finishing 12th. Not enough to get in the points, though. And then he had Daniel Ricciardo, again, struggling. You know, yes, he scored some points last time out. I do think that's because of failures. He would have been pushed further down the top out towards maybe 9th and 10th. And then we'll look at Daniel Ricciardo will be disappointed because an Aston Martin finished ahead of him. And Lance Stroll is another one. Yes, he's on home turf, but I just didn't rate Lance Stroll, but he picked up a great point. Good to see Zhou getting in the Alfa Romeo. Because he's had a couple of engine power units fail as well. He's picked up a couple of points there, so great for him. He was well happy in the press, when the media afterwards. Sorry, Valtteri Bottas, who I think I heard after post match, he's something like he scored 7 Grand Prix so far this season. He's scored points, which is fantastic, and he's shown he's capable of getting loads and loads of points. And again, the Alfa Romeos are picking loads of points. Fernando Alonso, the Alpines will probably be a little bit disappointed considering Alonso was second, but really they weren't really racing. They weren't going for the win. But he's dropped down. Obviously, he was taken over by Carlos Sainz a couple of times in the Grand Prix. But if you're talking to the two Alpines, look, you're going to finish 6th and 7th. They would have bit your hand off. It's a great driver, Esteban Ocon. He was starting 7th, obviously finished 6th. What a drive from Charles Leclerc, driver of the day. He was voted by that. What starting 19th, finishing 5th, and with Charles Leclerc, he had to go up the grid. There's only one way, and Charles Leclerc, he lost a couple of seconds in the pit, which let him down. He couldn't get past a couple of drivers because of the DRS train. There was a few in front of him as well. He was finding it difficult. When I say he had a tough afternoon, but to start 19th and finish 5th, he's done pretty well. However, he has done pretty well. So he was voted driver of the day, which is great for Ferrari because we need a bit of positivity. George Russell, who's never finished out the top 5. Good afternoon for Mercedes. Slowly starting to come back. Obviously, there's a lot of talk with Lewis Hamilton doesn't like the head bouncing, but for them to be 3rd, to be 4th, the Mercedes, which is great. Obviously, the two drivers, British Grand Prix up next, Silverstone, they'll be good in for that. So they've picked up some valuable points there, 27 points, which is great for Mercedes. And then obviously Carlos Sainz, who, when the safety car came back out towards, Sainz really, to be honest, wasn't really go. I don't know if Sainz, like, this was his opportunity to try and go and win the Grand Prix, and I didn't want to be too critical on him because second place is a respectable finish, and he picked up the fastest lap as well. And he said afterwards that he felt he was the quickest in the whole race, and even Verstappen said that to Sky Sports afterwards. So I just feel that if that was in the same position with Charles Leclerc, I think Charles Leclerc takes more risks, and Charles Leclerc tries and goes for it. But he's more aggressive than what Sainz was. I think you would have seen it a little bit of different. I think if the race went on for another few more laps, granted, Sainz might have had a better chance with obviously the DRS because that's why he was heavily relying on. We were a lot more quicker in the straight, especially when Canada, when you've got the two DRSs one after another, you've got that long straight, then you've got the little chicane that comes up towards the starting grid, and then you start the new lap. There's two DRSs there. But look, the safety car probably helps. Help Ferrari close the gap, and it was so close. It was so close for Carlos Sainz to go on and win the Grand Prix. But yeah, Max Verstappen picks up the win, and really Verstappen had an easy Grand Prix, I felt, until the last 10 to 15 minutes when that safety car come out, and then he had Sainz breathing down his neck, and he defended incredibly well. And that's tough for me to say that being a Ferrari fan, but Verstappen did, so he picks up a massive 25 points. And as I say, Carlos Sainz picked up that bonus point for the fastest lap. We'll have a look at the standings a little bit more detail, but we'll pause and have a look what is saying in the comments as well. I'm happy for Hamilton to finish third. Wilson, yeah, he's delighted for that. Jack, who's one of our writers on our website, Newcastle Fans TV, make sure you check his articles out. The great read. And he's gone out and say evenly what a race it was. Carlos Sainz had a great race. Yes, tinged with a tad of sadness, I think, because I think he could have been a little bit more aggressive. And he's gone out and saying, I hope Schumacher doesn't have to wait too long before he gets his first point finish. I hope so. Put a nice post out on his Instagram today. Who's your F1 hero? And obviously, with it being Father's Day, he said his dad, and that was a nice touch. Thought that was lovely. That. What's your Grand Prix track? My favourite, I'm guessing that's probably means. I mean, I like the prestige of Monaco. I just don't like the excitement of Monaco. And I do like. I like a mixture of street races and circuit races. I do like the nighttime. I do like night racing. I don't know why. There's just something about it's a bit like the football. I think there's just something about a nighttime game. There's something about the aura of it, the prestige of it, and obviously with football, it's the atmosphere and the crowds would be more for it. I don't know. Maybe it's the nighttime stuff, and obviously you could probably say that with the Far East as well. I'm not too keen on all the. I can understand why F1 are trying to go down the route of getting loads of Grand Prix in America, but I'm not a big fan of it. Just have one. I know you're trying to break into that market and break the mold of IndyCar and NASCAR and what have you. But for 3 Grand Prix in the USA, it's too much for me. And that's gonna probably pay off a few of the Americans, but 1, nah, not for me. But then again, you might say technically Italy's got 2 with San Marino. If you want to be, well, it is. Let's face it, Imola is a tiny, tiny, tiny little country based in Italy, and then. Yeah, you could say that, couldn't you? Happy with Lewis getting third, especially after Friday. Yes, says the Geordie View. He's had a better weekend as well. And Wolfson's gone on, what's your favourite Grand Prix track? The nighttime ones. I always like I'm not bothered about the British Grand Prix. I know that's next, but I'm not really arsed about it, to be honest with you. Owen, hello, pal. Long time no see. Even Lee. Not a good day for Norris and McLaren fans like me. Yep. With McLaren, they're struggling massively. And last season they were Ferrari's rivals, and that they just fell off. They fell off. Ricciardo's just shite. I'm sorry, Ricciardo's crap this season. He really is. Norris, obviously, not. I think all weekend has been more about reliability for him. So Norris is definitely one for the future, 100%. Maybe in the future I could see him at a Red Bull or someone at the front of Mercedes get the act together. I cannot see Norris hanging around McLaren for too many years. I'll be honest with you. If McLaren didn't get the act together. But like as I say, we'll hear from Matt now, and then we'll come back and look at the standings and the constructors as well. But here's Matt for almost 6 minutes.
It's been a while since I did one of these videos, and I think the last time that I spoke to you, Lee, it was Ferrari on top, out in front, seemingly Leclerc versus Verstappen, Ferrari against Red Bull. It was going to go away all the way to the end of the season, and then since then, it's gone absolutely belly up for Ferrari. Pretty much everything that can go wrong for an F1 team has gone wrong for them. And it was no different going into this weekend, as I'm sure you're aware. Charles Leclerc pretty much replacing his entire engine, his power unit and everything, all replaced, going over the limit, meaning he took a massive penalty to start 19th at the back of the grid. And I'll be honest, I didn't think that he would get in the points after the qualifying that he had, obviously starting at the back of the grid regardless, but I wasn't filled with a lot of hope. Obviously you got a new power unit, you don't want to push too hard and ruin it and put yourself at risk of getting another penalty further down the line. So I didn't think he'd push for points, and I didn't think it would be a good day for Ferrari, obviously with Carlos Sainz starting near the front, but in and amongst some other challengers who are known world champions and obviously desperate to get their own seasons off the mark as well. So I didn't think it would be a very good weekend for Ferrari, being brutally honest. But as you know, it turned out completely different. Charles Leclerc doing a very good job, albeit with a tiny bit of luck, which you have to say is long well deserved after the season that he's had so far. A tiny bit of luck with the safety car and a fantastic drive for him, finishing in 5th place, doing some damage limitation with Max Verstappen finishing way out in front in first. Obviously pushed well by Carlos Sainz right to the line. But it wasn't to be for Sainz, unfortunately. Still got a 2nd place, admirable 2nd place, great drive from the Spaniard today. And damage limitation for Ferrari, I think that's, I can't remember who got fastest lap today, but 4, possibly 5 points back for Ferrari in the constructors. And obviously limiting the gap with Max stretching his lead out, finishing 1st and Charles in 5th. So not the worst weekend for Ferrari. Hopefully they can use this as a springboard and get back on track. I mean, it's a time for a little bit of a humble brag from me, because at the start of the season, I think it was after the first race when we did our predictions, and I think I put Red Bull and Max Verstappen as first place in the constructors, and I think, Lee, you were a bit surprised at that, given how strong they'd started and how strong they looked. It might have been after the second race, actually. But I think I even said in those videos, I think reliability with Ferrari is going to be a massive issue this season. And it's not just with Ferrari. We've seen so many teams breaking down and having issues with their cars this season. It's not just them. We even saw it in today's race in Canada. But enough about Ferrari. We know they're going to be one of the main talking points of the season. Red Bull getting unlucky with Sergio Perez having an issue as well, getting a DNF in that race. Unlucky for him. Max Verstappen, we've already touched on. A couple of disappointing results for some teams and a couple of good results for others. One team that'll be massively disappointed this weekend, and personally I am as well, because I love Mickey Schumacher, is Haas. Obviously qualifying 5th and 6th, their best qualifying position in years for the two Haas cars, and looked like they were on for a decent chance of points in the first couple of laps, but then Magnussen with an issue had to box early, leaving his chances in the dust, and then Schumacher holding on for what would look to be a decent 8th, 9th and possibly 10th place finish, ended up having a failure of his own, ended up with a DNF. So a massively disappointing weekend for Haas, and Schumacher still waiting for his first points in Formula 1. I think they will come at some point this season though. One rookie to F1 this year though that got his second points haul of the season was Zhou Guanyu, or Guanyu Zhou, finishing in the Alfa Romeo Alpha, finishing with both cars in the top 10, so they'll be happy with those points, even if it is down towards the bottom end of the top 10. And Alpine, another team to finish with both cars in the top 10. Fernando Alonso obviously starting on the front row, but suffered with engine issues towards the end of the race, meaning he couldn't really push on and capitalise on the safety car. Ocon finishing just alongside him as well. But one team that has just flown silently under the radar this year with all the issues that they're having a quietly good year. Mercedes, obviously not the titans of yesteryear, but Lewis Hamilton getting on the podium again must be a great feeling for him after the luck he's had this season. And George Russell as well, just behind him, keeping up his run of top 5 finishes in a Mercedes car. And they're third in the Constructors' Championship and not far at all behind Ferrari. So that'll be an interesting race to see who comes second come the end of the year. I imagine Ferrari might just pip it though if they can work out their reliability issues. But yeah, it's been an interesting race. Norris, obviously, everyone that watches this series will know I'm a big McLaren fan. Norris having a very difficult race. I think he's got some issues with his car there, pretty much the back marker for the whole race itself. And then Daniel Ricciardo, again a disappointing result for him, running in the points for so long, even if it was the low end of the points. But then Lance Stroll beating him to 10th place of all people. So disappointing result for McLaren today. I'm hoping that we can bounce back towards the end of the season, but it's not looking good. I might even say that this could be Daniel Ricciardo's last season in Formula 1 if results continue to not go his way. As for Lando Norris, we obviously know he's got a bright future ahead of him, whether that be at McLaren or elsewhere. But decent weekend for Ferrari, like I say, damage limitation, but things look to be on the up. It was a great drive from Charles, lots of overtaking from him, and Sainz did a solid job proving that he can even challenge in that number 1 slot if needed, to be a great second driver to have if you're Ferrari as well. So optimistic for you lot towards the end of the season, Lee. But do you think you can catch up to Red Bull now?
Oh, sorry about that. Yeah, Ferrari through and through, as you might have imagined there. No surprise, no our support. Yeah, cheers for that, Matt. Matt was actually at the Catalonia Grand Prix as well. I'm not sure if he's at Silverstone, though. He hasn't really said, but I might catch up with him, send him a WhatsApp. But yeah, thank you very much for Matt with that clip. As he mentioned, as I touched upon earlier on, the Haas were at the start fantastic well, and obviously the problems that they had with Magnussen early on, being told to pit, and then the failure of Mick Schumacher. Bless him, man. Bless him, man. He was buzzing over the qualifying as well. He was beaming when he got the interviews after qualifying. And of course, yeah, Mercedes slowly creeping up. You know, they're slowly getting the pace a little bit better. Tito Wolff obviously mentioned that the car was placed a little bit higher off the ground, which has stopped the bounce and going like that. But obviously, it's Silverstone. You've got fast speed corners, so that's not going to help. That's not going to help at all. And Matt's obviously a big McLaren fan, of course, as he's touched upon, and they've had a disastrous weekend. Probably the hopes were pinned on Norris, but he's just had reliability factors over and over. So let's have a look at the Constructors' Championship first of all. So these are the current situations where we are at the minute in terms of the constructors, and we'll work our way backwards, upwards as we do. So Williams are struggling. Williams are really, really struggling. And And interesting, Sir Frank Williams, who's blessed him, is no longer with us. Rest in peace. With the Williams, Sir Frank Williams was actually born in South Shields. So yeah, there's a little stat for if you didn't know that. And then obviously the American team Haas, who or everybody's kind of favourite underdogs at the moment. And then you've got Aston Martin, obviously. Matt touched upon there, Lance Stroll overtaking Ricciardo, which is just crazy, crazy. Say that again. Lance Stroll took over Daniel Ricciardo for the points. I mean, that's just mad. Think about that. So they're on 16 points. So there's a battle between those two for, coming second last, I guess. And then we'll move up the AlphaTauri in 7th place. And then I said already, it's coming up to an interesting battle if Bottas keeps his form. I think he does need help from Zhou in the Alfa Romeo, 47 points. Bottas is doing the business. He's grabbing them points really, really well. And Alpine, it's a great weekend. I know Alonso was disappointed to drop him down, but let's be realistic. Alonso's not fighting for a race. The qualifying second was great, but the Alpine is doing unreal with Ocon and Alonso. Look at that gap with McLaren. Just 4 points in it. And look how far McLaren are now behind Mercedes. We're not just talking, that's a good 4 Grand Prix, I think. And that's without Mercedes scoring any points. McLaren have dropped dramatically down and basically fighting for 4th. And now, obviously, they did finish 4th last season, but it was up until the last race where Ferrari got back into 3rd. And, what happened to McLaren? It's, you've got to, I think you've got to unfortunately point the finger a little bit. And a couple of things, there's reliability, of course, but Daniel Ricciardo's got to put his idea out for McLaren. And it's if you're a McLaren fan, you must be disappointed with that because you're fighting with Alpine, and McLaren could realistically finish if they didn't start improving. Alfa Romeo could catch them, so they could finish, halfway down the table, 5th and 6th. But if you look at the top 3, as Matt was saying before, Mercedes are starting to gather a little bit of momentum. They're slowly closing the gap a little bit. I don't think that they'll catch Red Bull, but you never know. The Ferrari is there. And then obviously Ferrari are a good, over 76 points or something ahead, the Red Bull. But obviously, Sergio Perez not scoring any points today helped a little bit because we closed the gap a tad. Did we close the gap? I can't remember now. Sainz got 19 points. Well, we'll have a look in a second. But yeah, what do you reckon of the standings so far? Do you think it's Red Bulls? They're going to run away with the constructors, battle for 2nd and 3rd, and then McLaren and the Alpine as well. It's an interesting one, isn't it? But we'll move up to the drivers because there's a lot more to get through here. No surprise. Obviously, Hulkenberg's not in this list, by the way. I know they put him on the TV stats, but obviously he's not going to be racing going forward because he's only filling in for Vettel, wasn't he? But no surprise, the Canadian on his home Grand Prix didn't impress Nicholas Latifi. The amount of times he always crashes, spins his car, doesn't score any points. And Alex Albon's predominantly outscoring him in almost every race, even if Albon doesn't get any points. I think it's just his future's not in Formula One for me. Mick Schumacher, I talked about him quite a bit already on today's video. Lance Stroll, I still don't rate Lance Stroll, but that's great for him to pick up a point in his home Grand Prix. And I mentioned Alex Albon. Guan Yu Zhou in the Alfa Romeo, I think he's had a couple of power unit failures, which has stopped him getting more points. Expect him to pick up a few more points now with a bit of momentum. Yuki Tsunoda, he's one of them for me, sitting on 11 points, that there's always a mistake in him. He's got talent, but there's always a mistake in him. Kind of who can I compare it to in Newcastle at the minute? Someone gives a player. I don't know. Say, I'm probably being a little bit harsh here, but say, I don't know, Martin Dubravka. Martin Dubravka's a great goalkeeper. He has talent, but he's always got a slight mistake in him. You're always worried. Towards, obviously, the second half of the season, he hasn't. I'm just comparing the player here. Someone else is going to correct me. Like ASM. ASM's a fantastic talent, but towards the end of the season, he kind of faded off a little bit. But that's what I'm trying to compare him to. But Tsunoda's got mistakes in him. 100% he has. And I think he should be pushing a little bit higher up the table. Sebastian Vettel, of course, missed a couple of the Grand Prix. I want Vettel to do well. Still talented, picking up 13 points, obviously former Ferrari driver. Of course, I would say that. Daniel Ricciardo, talked about him already. For me, he has to be higher up. He's got to be scoring more points. I know he's got another year left next season, but I could see that being cut short. Look at that, man. Kevin Magnussen's on the same points as him. I mean, that's the Haas. Haas is level with McLaren. That's really alarming, isn't it? Pierre Gasly, who I think is very, very talented. Not the greatest weekend today, but very, very talented. And then if we start moving into the top 10, you got Fernando Alonso, the old Wiley Fox, which is great. And then his teammate is outperforming him, Esteban Ocon. I think Alonso will want to close that gap down because he is very, very determined. As I mentioned, Bottas already sitting in 8th in the Alfa Romeo. I thought he was disappointing last season in the Mercedes. I thought Bottas should be doing a little bit better, but sitting in 44 points. Lando Norris was picking up most of McLaren's points. Look at that, 50. And when you compare that, Ricciardo 15. I mean, that's like 4 or 5 times more better, 3.5 times better. Lewis Hamilton's starting to pick up points here and there now into the top 6 that we go. With Hamilton, 77 points. Carlos Sainz, a big weekend for him, 19 points there, pulling away a little bit from Lewis Hamilton this weekend. And that'll do him the world of good now, over 100 points. And his sights will no doubt will probably be on George Russell going for 4th place in the Drivers' Championship. George Russell, as I mentioned already, all the ones, 111, finished in the top 5 of every Grand Prix so far this season. That's an incredible record. Incredible not have a power unit failure or tyres going or a spin or a crash. That's really good. That's consistency for Russell. Charles Leclerc starting from 19th, driver of the day. I think that's a positive for him. I know he's had a couple of stuff that he's mentioned in the interviews where he had a trail of cars where he couldn't use the DRS properly. He was stuck behind Ocon for a while as well. The pits, obviously, he was delayed, but to get some points on the board, I think that's great for Leclerc because that starting with the engine change and the penalty, at least it's not Verstappen has 25 clear him this weekend. He's pulled that back a little bit. And then Sergio Perez, who didn't score anything, he went off, which helped the rest of the pack, of course, with because Red Bull could have easily finished 1 and 2. Potentially, if Perez went through the field. You don't know that. But Perez, 129. And look at the gap now Verstappen's got. It's massive now, isn't it? It's almost 2 Grand Prix now. So, yeah, there is talk that, would Red Bull favour Verstappen? Well, look at the points difference now. I think they would now. Because if Sergio Perez got some points and maybe finished ahead of Verstappen, I know it would have been a difficult ask coming from 13th, but yeah, it's for me now. I said this at the start of the season. It's for Verstappen to lose for me, and he's pulling away. And I would have been delighted if Ferrari were there or thereabouts, competing, which they are competing, which is great to see. Because last season we were like 4th and 5th guys every single race. Yes, we got a couple of poles, and Leclerc is really good at getting poles. But the thing that I'm worried about is the consistency with Ferrari. So, touch wood, of course, we didn't have nothing happening this weekend. Yes, Leclerc started from the back, but yeah, we need to pick up some wins now. And I said this last week as well. You don't want Red Bull running away with everything because it makes the sport crap. It does. You need Ferrari to compete and make the sport a bit more competitive. And even if Mercedes do get the act together properly, Red Bull might be too far in advance. Yes, it might be great towards the second half of the season, towards the end, like the final third. But if Red Bull are way in front, it's all decided, isn't it? Predictions on Jordy View says predictions on a potential Ricciardo replacement if he goes after this year. Well, the thing is, look, McLaren have got money in the bank, of course they have, but who would go at McLaren? So if I looked at McLaren, and I would go for either Vettel, Alonso, or Gasly would be my 3 pick. If you want to go for a younger generation, go for Gasly, because you could have Gasly and Norris, assuming Norris sticks around. There's your 2 for years to come on. I know Vettel and Alonso are getting on, and they might look at retirement in the next couple of years, but you've got especially 2 former world champions there, and Gasly, I think he will be in a bigger team in the future. And is this the table before Alonso's 5-second penalty, dropping him behind the Alfa Romeos? Well, this is on the Formula One website currently as I speak at the minute. So this is up to date. This was updated to date at 8:50 p.m. tonight. So if it has changes, apologies in advance if it has. But that was done at 10 to 9 tonight. With that, but yeah, that is another Formula One video wrapped up. Me and Matt are big fans of F1. Brandon's a casual. I haven't seen Brandon for a while, but he's too much in love with women across Europe. That's why you probably haven't seen him. But yeah, if you can smash that like, that'll be absolutely wonderful. We do have another video on NFTV Extra in a few more days where Carl has been on the radio talking about the Saudi Arabian stuff with Newcastle fans. So yeah, that's an interesting one. But yeah, that is your Formula One wrap up of the Canadian Grand Prix. Smash that like, everybody. Please let us know in the comments if you're watching the rerun what you thought of the race and everything, all the incidents and the current standings at the moment. British Grand Prix up next till Silverstone. Ta-ra, everyone. Bye-bye.